Please welcome our Master of Ceremonies this evening, another great hero with his roots in Philadelphia. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Matthews.
Thank you, Bill, and I want to thank Barbara Cochran, my dear friend, for this honor, and I hope, in all humility, I don't let you down. Barbara, it's great. I want to thank my wife, Kathleen, who was anchor for all those years at Channel 7. She worked from reporter, producer, anchor woman. She did 5, 6, and 11 all those years, and she taught me. She's the greatest, and everybody likes Kathy, and Kathy likes everybody. And I always refer to her as my ambassador to the human race. And I need one. She's out skiing with her sister in Utah right now. There is life beyond television. It was Kathy, my dear, my queen, who introduced me to the idea of a news director. In fact, she knew a lot of news directors. In her time at Channel 7, you will not believe this. Charlie Gibson knows the world over there. It was a somewhat rocky place. She had, in her lifetime at Channel 7, 19 of you guys, 19 news directors. So I know it's not just a tough job, it's a tough job to keep. I'm talking about hardball. Well, it's an honor to be up on the stage with so many people I've gotten to know so many years ago, and I hate to think how long I've known these people, and I'll get to each of them, Cokie especially. And so I've known these people, and Charlie and Cokie, and of course Tim isn't here, but all those people I got to know, and Barbara and Judy and Sam Donaldson. I have a word about Sam in a minute here, who is inimitable. Sam Donaldson. I first want to pay tribute to the heroes who've helped our ratings this winter. These characters that seem to come like manna from heaven. I don't know where these people come from. First of all, that man from Chicago. Okay, that other man from Chicago. Battling Rod Blagojevich. We call him B-Rod because B-Rod produces numbers for MSNBC. He reminds me of the prisoner having supper with his cellmate. You know, the food was better when you were governor. I want to thank B-Rod's choice for the United States Senate. Strikes me as a decent enough guy. He seems to think that the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth are 3 different things. I want to pay tribute to that other Chicagoan, the one who thinks he's a news director, Rahm Emanuel. He tells us what the topic is. And he tells us now that the topic is Rush Limbaugh. I got to be careful with this one. Al Franken called Rush a big, fat idiot. And look where that got him. It's an honor to be up here, as I said, with all these people. I got to know most of you guys back in the 1980s when I was working for Tip O'Neill. Barbara, of course, and the late Tim, the wonderful Tim, and Charlie and Cokie were regulars at Tip's morning press conferences. And I don't think you two guys missed a single one. I have to tell you, back then, Judy was already a top-flight broadcast journalist. Well, as for Sam, I remember Sam. Where's Sam? Here I am. Humble Sam. I remember Sam when I was writing speeches for Jimmy Carter. Yes, those were the words of professionals, by the way. You always asked the question, Sam, that the average person wanted to ask, which inevitably was the last one in the world that Jimmy Carter wanted to answer. You drove Carter crazy. And when he lost re-election, he said to Jody and a few of us, there's 2 people I happily bequeath to Ronald Reagan, Menachem Begin and you, Sam. Because Sam was the guy who, in loving detail, described how a rabbit tried to climb into President Carter's boat with an intent to do him serious harm. It was Sam Donaldson. I think you really croaked this guy. The Sam who came up with that unforgettable phrase, the killer rabbit. That was Sam. I want to thank you and so many other people. I worked in politics back, unbelievable, a quarter century ago, and how different it was. And this to young people here today, I'm going to tell you about a place far away and very different from today. I worked for a guy, Tip O'Neill, who was not only cordial, he was a Democrat, a big liberal, He was not only cordial with the Republican leader in the House, they were absolutely close personal buddies, really friends that hung around with each other. How different. Charlie and Cokie and the rest of the beat reporters not only covered Tip O'Neill and the institution of the House, they had affection for the people they covered, especially Tip. It was a different time. And Donald, the big secret that you guys didn't know, because I was on the other side of it, Tip loved the reporters. He loved you guys. Cokie knows this. He loved getting up in the morning and meeting these guys in the morning. Of course, occasionally he'd have me meet him at some other place to get ready for you. But he loved you guys. It was so different. We had a liberal Speaker of the House back then, and we had a conservative President, Ronald Reagan, who would actually go at each other politically and get along in this tough Irish guy's kind of way afterwards. I remember when the first time I met Ronald Reagan, he was using, this was so, I feel like Uncle Tanoose telling these stories. He came into 210, H210, which is right off the House floor, off the chamber. And he was in that room drinking his special tea or whatever it was to get ready for his State of the Union, because he was good at it. He knew what to drink. And I went in there and I said, and I was still Chris then, I said, welcome, Mr. President, to the room where we plot against you. And Ronald Reagan said, oh no, Chris, not after 6. The Speaker says, in this town, we're all friends after 6. And he was, and I heard this wonderful story thanks to the great David Broder a couple years ago. And this is how different things were. And this is civil partisanship. I'm not talking bipartisanship. This is civil, almost loving partisanship. When Ronald Reagan was shot, Jim Baker, I think the best chief of staff we've seen in our lives, kept everybody from seeing him because the people like Bobby Baker were trying, not Bobby Baker, that would have been interesting. Bobby Byrd tried to get in to see him one time, and he was almost dead. Of course, he had lost half his blood in that assassination attempt, and he was at GW Hospital. And so Jim Baker said, nobody gets to see him. And finally said, because Jim understood the Constitution, the Speaker should be the first to see him, the opposition leader. And so he said, let Tip come see him. So Max Friedersdorf was sort of keeping watch on the president in his convalescence, and he was in bad shape. Nobody knew how bad. And he's sitting across the room, and nobody else is in the room. And he described in the oral history of the University of Virginia the sight of the liberal Democratic Speaker of the House on his knees next to Ronald Reagan, holding hands with the president, reciting the 23rd Psalm together, assuming nobody else is around. That was American politics, and it wasn't 1,000 years ago. It was incredible. I remember something that, I came across something that Ronald Reagan wrote. St. Patrick's Day is coming next week. And I remember something that Ronald Reagan wrote in his diary after one of those St. Patrick's lunches. He said, Tip is a real pal. He can really like you personally and be a friend while politically trying to beat your head in. Not so long ago. I miss those days.